Well, we'll make our way to the book of Hebrews in a moment, but I want to take you back to James chapter 3 for a little bit, verse 1, that I told you I would come back to someday, this morning a little earlier. I told you that. And I want to read to you and then explain why I want to mention it this afternoon. It says in James chapter 3, verse 1, "Not many of you should presume to be teachers, my brothers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly." I know you've heard that before. Have you ever thought about what that means? Not many of you should presume to be teachers because you know that those of us who teach will be judged more strictly. It obviously has something to do with the power that we have to influence in our teaching. And it obviously has something to do with how easy it is for us to lead someone in a different direction or to stir someone up in a certain kind of way. In that day and time, from what did they teach? When James would have written this, from what did they teach? Well, they didn't use this book, did they? It wasn't in existence. And so people would be teachers, but they would teach based upon stories that had been passed down by people who were eyewitnesses to Jesus or people who had listened to eyewitnesses to Jesus. So they would teach on things that had been passed down. As we pass things down, what happens to them sometimes? They get distorted. So have you ever played that game? Have you ever been at a church party and played that game and someone whispers over here in someone's ear a story, and you go all the way around and you see what the last person has heard? Everybody played that? And we like to play it because it makes us really tickled and it makes us really laugh, because at the end, how does it compare to the beginning? Not very well. And so teaching was largely like that in the early church. It was passed down. They had a few letters that they would hear about. And so he's telling them, be careful. Now, while it was meant probably in that direction, it has major bearing today. So, what was it, a week or two ago, I preached a lesson and I got a little bit over into the edge of politics, which I normally never, ever do. And I told you about the story of the person who was running for the presidency who made this comment. My interpretation was that he said that Jesus Christ was a racist. Well, Burke checked me out. Burke looked up the blasted story. Well, excuse me, I shouldn't say blasted, right? Shouldn't be. He looked up the story. And I looked up the story too. I just read it one way and he read it the other. But he was right. The person was saying that our president was the original racist, and he used the term Jesus Christ as you would use a curse word. He was taking Jesus Christ's name in vain and saying that President Trump was the original racist. I misinterpreted that. I misread that. And yet I got up and told an entire group of people that story as though I was right. I was not right. Now, the lesson that followed was right. Even Burke agreed with me on that. The lesson that followed was right. But I messed up in my interpretation of the story. Now, is that possible for me to do in other ways? Absolutely possible. That's why we often hear people say, don't study for yourself. Just read. You've got to determine what you think it says. I may think one thing it's about it saying something, and you may think something else. One may be right, one may be wrong, both may be right. It's possible. So I just wanted to call your attention to the fact that of all people, I don't have all the answers. And of all people, you don't have standing up here on Sunday mornings someone who would be considered in any fashion. I used to hear the word scholar a lot. There's nothing scholarly about me. It just doesn't happen. And as I've been with scholars, I don't think there are very many of them either. I have been with some of them. been able to listen to some of the greatest well-known Bible teachers of all stripes. And it just means they've got a couple of PhDs in this thing, and they know a lot about this, but you just got to be careful. You got to be careful. When you teach and when you listen, you have to be careful to make sure that what's being said is how you think it should be said, to make sure it's kind of right. And even then, we have different opinions, right? I may feel about a verse differently than you feel about a verse. So with that, I return to Hebrews chapter 1. We looked at the first 4 verses last week. They are special verses. They are filled with power. They are dynamic verses. They're fun to teach. Everybody remember that? How the writer of the book of Hebrews, whom we don't know who it is, we don't know who the writer is. Some say it's likely to be Paul. We don't know that. But he's going to write. He's writing this whole book. You can never forget this as you're reading the book. Because if you get to a little section of it and read that alone and forget what the purpose of the book is, you might misinterpret. Or I might misteach. Because the purpose of the book is to talk to people who are giving up on Christianity. They're giving up on this which they found as salvation. They're giving up on the little group of Christians with whom they associate and assemble. They're just giving up. Now, lest we think that's a strange phenomena, it's not strange at all. It happens all the time, does it not? Can you think of some people that you know who used to be faithful, as we call it, used to be involved, and they're not any longer at all? Can you think of people like that? I can think of lots of people like that. They just don't. I've reached a point in my life where I don't think it's important. And right now, in fact, I've saved an article on my phone about how many people who have been church leaders who are walking away from Christianity, saying it's not what I thought it was, not what I thought I was teaching all that time. And in a world that gets aggressively more anti-God and promotes that so that that's what we hear a lot, would it be easier to walk away in that kind of world? And so what do our young people hear constantly? What are they hearing constantly in their school system and in other places? They're hearing things that are anti-God. The media is filled with anti-God. Is Hollywood maybe a little bit anti-God? No, it's more than maybe a little bit. And where do they go? What do they watch? And their favorite singers? How do they feel about religion and God normally? So they're bombarded by all this. So it's easy to quit, and people are quitting here. And so this writer is going to make all kinds of arguments to say, you're giving up the best that there is. You're giving up something you ought not to give up. And so he starts talking in the very beginning about, you notice how I keep doing these glasses? I'm going to get some new ones someday, but they always go like this. And that doesn't look too good, so I have to pull them back down, okay? Everybody still awake? So he's been talking about God has spoken to us in the past by various ways, but now he speaks to us how? By his what? By his Son. And he talks about the Son is the radiance of his glory. And the way we see God is by seeing the Son. And he goes on and on like that until finally in verse 4 he says, he's superior to the angels. Now there were some people apparently back in that day that looked at angels and said, they're the greatest beings of all. And this writer is going to say, let me clear one thing up for you in the very beginning. This Jesus, who is the Son of God, who is the exact representation of God, who is God's glory, he's far better than the angels. He's far above the angels. Now just listen to what he says about it right here. So he became as much superior to the angels as a name he has inherited is superior to theirs. For which of the angels did he say, "You are my son, today I've become your father"? Did he ever say it to an angel? No. But he said it to Jesus. That's what the writer is making a point of. Or again, so which of the angels did he say, "I will be his father and he'll be my son"? Did he say it to any of the angels? Even Michael, the great angel that's talked about over and over again, did he say it to him? No. And again, when God brings his firstborn into the world, he says, "Let all the angels worship him." If you think angels are better than Jesus, why then did God himself, when he brought Jesus to this earth, say, "Let all the angels worship him"? If the angels are greater than Jesus, why would they worship Jesus then? It ought to be the other way around. And he says, in speaking of the angels, he says, he makes his angels winds, his servants flames of fire, which is an interesting thought. How does an angel appear? What does an angel look like? Well, some people said I've looked like one, but not many. But not many. Nell always has thought I was an angel. She thought Sue's married an angel. And, I've kind of encouraged that. But what does an angel look like? Can they appear in human form? Oh, yeah, in the Old Testament, we see them appearing in human form in the days of the Abraham and Isaac type thing. But he says here they can appear as a what? As wind, the spirit of fire. The angel can come in different shapes, sizes, and appearances, and whatever. Because they are spiritual beings. And God can have them do anything. Remember when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in the furnace? And they said, "Hey, I thought we put 3 in there. There's a 4th one." Now most people say that's Jesus walking with them. But angels can do anything, be anywhere, whatever. So they appear differently, but not Jesus. He may send an angel to be a wind. He may send an angel in servants of fire and flames of fire. But about his son, he says, "Your throne, O God, will last forever and ever, and your righteousness will be the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness, hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has set you above your companions by anointing you with oil of joy." He also says, in the beginning, O Lord, you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the works of your hands. So here we go again. Was Jesus there in the beginning? Was Jesus with God? Was Jesus God? Were all things made by him? We know John says that in the beginning of his gospel. It's all right there laid out for us. He was there. He made it all, is what this writer's saying. Don't tell me an angel's greater than he is. He was there. They will perish, the heavens will perish, but you will remain. Nice little reminder for all of us. It's not the subject of this text. Nice little reminder. What's going to happen to this earth? It's going to go away. How quickly? Blink of an eye, it's going to be burned to a crisp. Nothing going to be left. But how about God? Will he still be? How about all those he's taken with him to heaven? Will they still be? And for how long will they be? For more forevers than you and I can ever say. And we can't comprehend that either. But that's what he says here. They will perish, but you will remain. They will wear out like a garment, these heavens, this earth. You'll roll them up like a robe. Like a garment, they will be changed. But you remain the same, for your years will never end. Talking about Jesus. To which of the angels did God ever say, "Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet"? Which angel got to sit at the right hand of God? and have dominion over everything. Is that not where Jesus is right now? Did he not say, I'll put you back at the right hand? And you'll be Lord of lords and King of kings? And at your feet every what? Every knee will what? Will bow. I'll make them your footstool. That's what he said. This is all about Jesus. He's the center. He's the New Testament. He's the New Testament. He's the New Covenant. He's everything. Were it not for Jesus, there wouldn't even be a New Testament written. Do you understand that? There would be no reason to have it. People would still be struggling with that old law that's impossible to keep. But the old law was only given to show us what? The only reason it was given, that we can't keep it, that it was a schoolmaster. It's like a mean teacher. I mean, some of you teachers are nice, okay, but it's like a mean teacher. You can't please that old law. It's impossible. And now we open the pages of the New Testament, and here's this one sent from heaven to take away our sins freely. And the writer of the book of Hebrews said, how can you give up on this person that became God, that was God and became person and was God again? How can you give up? And finally he says this, are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation? Now that's the one I have circled right here because we always get tricky with this one, and yet it says a lot. Aren't all angels today sent for what purpose? What do they do today? They are ministering servants to whom? Those who are inheriting salvation. And so there's a little passage that says about angels unaware. Be careful, you may be entertaining an angel unaware. They are sent to be ministering servants. There are some people who believe, and they may well be right, though nobody knows for sure. See how interesting it is? Some things we don't know for sure. There are some people who believe that we have angels assigned to us that watch over us. That I don't know if that's right or not. But I just know that God uses angels right now to take care of His people. Minister to His people. Now, is that a comfort? The writer's going to say, don't you ever get mixed up. Don't you ever get mixed up. Jesus is the person. He's the Savior. No angel's going to save you. But I will tell you this. Angels are having a purpose right now from heaven to take care of all those who will inherit salvation, who are being saved. Kind of with an angel on my side, I kind of feel pretty good, don't you? And we sing that song that when Jesus was on the cross, He could have what? Could have called 10,000 angels. What do you think they could have done to Rome? You know, I kind of figure one angel could have done everything to Rome needed to have done to it. It didn't take that many. But the book is written to encourage us to hang on, to stay with it, to not give up. And it's, to me, it's invigorating. To me, it's invigorating to hear who Jesus is, the exact representation of God, represents the glory of God. And if you happen to be thinking that an angel is more important than Jesus, you got it all wrong. All the angels are ministering servants to those of us who are being saved. He is the one who saved. Isn't that good? The book of Hebrews never stops like that. The book of Hebrews will take people like Moses and say, you think Moses was good? Let me tell you about Jesus. You think Abraham was good? Let me tell you about Jesus. He's just going to keep going like that. So I want you to be encouraged to hang on. I thank you for being here this afternoon. Thank you for being happy, enjoying yourselves in this environment. Let's sing our final song.